Welcome to another exciting edition to Grove City Hockey Presents
Hockey in our neck of the woods, and you, sir, were a very talked about person towards the end.
I'm a fifth-year senior, kind of. Well, it's my sixth year of college.
Hey guys, we want to say thank you to our sponsor, Cutshield, for bringing you this episode. Make sure you check them out on the link below and use the promo code for 25% off your order. Used by all 32 NHL teams and players, Cutshield is the premier protective player clothing designed by players for players. Their innovative cut-resistant clothing has prevented serious injury to numerous players, including over 30 NHL players. Cutshield gives you the peace of mind to go out and play without worrying about injury. Use our promo code Grove City Hockey, all lowercase and no space, for an additional 25% off your order today. Welcome to GCH Podcast. I'm your host, Ben W. Stock, and with me is a very special guest. I've got a man coming all the way from Las Vegas, Nevada, Brandon Barnette. How you doing, Brandon?
Doing well. How about yourself, man?
Oh, living the dream. So I brought you on because I had seen a little bit. We've been friends for a long time. We've chatted throughout the years. And I wanted to bring you on to talk to you and have you tell us your story, because it's quite a unique story. From start to finish. It's just really cool.
Sure.
So why don't you take us back to the beginning? What drew you to inline hockey, and how hockey has kind of shaped your life, so to speak?
Yeah, I mean, I would say it all started when we moved. My family moved. I think it was sixth grade. We moved not very far from our old house, but we just moved up into a bigger house. And there was a kid 2 houses down that played roller hockey. So he was my age. We started hanging out, and I just started going to a couple of his games, and it kind of drew me in. I was always a big athlete and playing lots of different sports. Basically, I was mostly baseball. I was a big baseball player all the way up until high school. And honestly, once I started playing hockey, that kind of took a back burner. My passion was hockey immediately once I started getting into it. And it kind of killed my fire on the baseball side. But yeah, I just started going to his games and then talked my mom into it. And I actually started out, believe it or not, as a goalie, because at the old Corona rink, when it was Inline Sports Center back in the day, if you were a goaltender and you had your own gear, they let you play for free. The rink had a big selection of, old used goalie gear. And if you use their gear, they let you play for half off. So that was kind of, I tried to kind of sucker my mom into it. Not that she would have said no or anything, but I was like, oh, I can play for half off. I'll just play goalie, right? Mm-hmm. And then as fate would have it, that was back. I mean, it was so different back then. That was back when, even for rec, you had a big tryout, right? And the coaches drafted kids and did all that kind of stuff, which doesn't happen anymore. But as fate would have it, the guy who was my very first coach and drafted me, his son was their goalie. So it was kind of like, oh, you guys don't have to switch off or whatever. And I maybe played one game. And so then I had to start borrowing gear. And it was kind of funny. I was the true, play it again sports kid. Mm-hmm. I had red, white, and blue gloves and yellow pants, and just everything was super mismatched. But yeah, the rest is history. I took it and loved it, and just got into a lot of cool stuff because of it. So it's been pretty cool.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it doesn't matter what you wear. Like my old building trades teacher said, he goes, it doesn't have to look pretty as long as you look or you can play or it keeps you warm. Because he was talking about warm weather gear, like hats and gloves and stuff. He's like, it doesn't have to look pretty as long as it keeps you warm. Who cares?
It just does the job, right?
Exactly. And it's the same thing with hockey equipment. It's like, it doesn't matter what it looks like, because you got guys that or like even better yet, when you go to a rink nowadays, you still see guys wearing stuff that they wore 20 years ago. Because it's all like falling apart, and you're like, it's just holding on by a piece of fabric. And
I played in some men's tournaments back when Patty Toogood had the Top Cat hockey in Southern California. This one guy, I mean, you could literally see his palm. He had one strip.
Yeah.
We're saying, dude, why don't you get some new gloves? And he just wouldn't do it. Old school type of guy, just loved his old gear.
Yeah. And when you love something, when they fit, and they work. So
absolutely.
Yeah. So walk us through a little bit more. So you got your start, when you moved from one house in Corona to another house. You were out in the Orange County area, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Corona, yeah. Kind of like right by where the Corona rink is. I mean, I pretty much grew up in that building.
Yeah, and then
later start than a lot of kids. I think I was 11 or 12 when I finally, when I first picked up the game.
Mm-hmm. And then from there, did they have high school leagues back then, or like middle school leagues? Or
it was actually just. Oh, sorry, I cut you off there. It was fairly big actually at one point. So when I got into high school, a buddy of mine and I started our high school team that went for a few years, and that was when they had, I forget the name. I want to say it was State Cup maybe. Mm-hmm. And that was just all the high school teams in Southern California used to come and play like a big tournament. But then every Sunday at the Corona rink was just high school day. I mean, morning to night, it was all the different levels of high school, and it was actually really big. I think they still have it out in Irvine right now, but it's not as big as it used to be, which is unfortunate. But yeah, when I got into it, it was definitely, you had a lot of levels. You had gold, silver, bronze. Like there was a pretty wide disparity of groups. Some schools like Santiago was the big one. They had teams in every division. So you had multiple teams at some schools, and it was actually pretty big back then.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me, but it sounds like it reminds me of when I coached in Africa, where you had like 5 clubs, and then each club had X number of teams per division. Like we had a red and a green team for our like 8U, 10U, and 12U. And then we had a couple in our 14U and 16U, but we only had like one team in our open. But the other clubs had multiples. They had like 2 or 3 teams. So it sounds like it's very similar to that.
Yeah.
And so then when you got done, so you worked your way through that, and then you decided you were going to play some college hockey, some college roller hockey. You started out at Riverside, right?
Yeah, RCC actually, and it's kind of funny because when I was in high school, like I said, I pretty much grew up in the Corona rink. My first job was there as a scorekeeper, and then started refereeing. And I was actually refereeing in the college league when RCC was playing their affiliate year, because back then you had to affiliate your first year. You couldn't actually go to nationals or anything like that. And one of the tournaments, I believe it was in Upland at the old Upland rink. They were short guys, and I was supposed to ref, and then I ended up just playing with them because they were short, and I did go to the school. I have no idea why I originally wasn't playing. I don't know if it was just I wanted to ref or something instead. But yeah, so we did that, and then the next 2 years, we actually had pretty solid squads. Lost in the championship game our first year in Colorado Springs. Somebody missed a penalty shot. We won't talk about who it was late in the game. Then the next year, we ended up bringing it home in North Carolina, so it was pretty fun.
Cool.
And honestly, RCC was probably still to this day some of the funnest hockey I've ever played. It was just a group of us that, no coach or anything like that. We just kind of had a group of guys that had played together for a long time and played our own kind of hockey. I still feel bad for Ryan McNichols, who was our goalie, because we really were just like, hey, let's just score more than the other team and we win. We don't have to worry about any kind of defense or anything like that. And we had the firepower to do it, so we left him hanging out to dry quite a bit.
And he was doing his best to try to keep the pucks out of the net, and yeah.
No, and he did a good job, but he wasn't happy with us a lot. Let's put it that way. And we brought it on ourselves.
Yeah, fair enough. But then that prompted another move after your second year. You ended up coming to probably one of the best roller hockey programs in the country at Lindenwood. You had a chance to play for Ronnie Bielstein. How did that come about? Was this something that he saw you at RCC and was like, "Hey, I want you to come to Lindenwood." Maybe JP was the one that kind of like pushed at you a little bit. Tell me a little bit about that. How that kind of came about.
Kind of a funny story. Ultimately, it was Greg Thompson that gave me the official kind of invite and helped me get set up. But I had played before I moved there. I actually got hooked up with Team K-Tech out of Colorado. They were around for a few seasons. They're not anymore. Mike Cioli used to run their team. So I was working at the Anaheim rink in Southern California, and Christian Scarino was there. He moved down to coach the Anaheim Bulldogs program, was buddies with Mike Cioli. There's a whole story here, but he ended up getting me in to play with them, and I played a few tournaments with them. There was one year we went to the Narch qualifier in Detroit at Dumars, which we were talking about earlier before we started. We went out and played that, and it was when Narch was they were doing something, I forget what it was, like an All-Stars or something from the regionals. Do you remember what it was? I forget. They give you like a polo. I forget exactly.
Yeah,
it was
it was almost like kind of like a regional all-star, kind of like what they're doing now with like the Central, Eastern, and Western. But it was more localized. Like it was more individualized. It was almost like you had like the Great Plains, you had the Midwest, you had the East, you had the Southeast, you had the Southwest. They did it like
per regional, like per tournament and stuff. And so I had been reffing and scorekeeping for Narch, for a few years at this time. I think this was around 2005. And Jim Anderson, who was one of the old tournament directors for Narch, actually mentioned something. Him and I were always pretty close, over summer, working the whole tournament series and everything. And he mentioned something to Greg about like, hey, you should look at this guy for LU. He's out here at Dumars killing it. Because I did have a really good tournament when we went out there. And Thompson said, "Oh yeah, he plays for RCC. Like I know who he is." We had never officially like met each other, but we kind of knew each other, indirectly. And yeah, so Jim is kind of the one I credit for starting the conversation. Yeah. And then I think it was later that year, I started working State Wars. I worked the inaugural State Wars as a scorekeeper, I think, and I started reffing the second year. But I worked, 4 or 5 years for them. And in the first one, Greg kind of brought it up to me and he goes, why don't you come play at LU? And I think that I want to say it was 2005 because I don't think in that first season I was able to get it going. It was just like, it was already summer and it would have I think it was State Wars was end of July, early August. And I would have had to been there like at the end of August. So that first year I didn't go. And that's when we went to North Carolina for RCC and we ended up winning. And then the next year I got everything in place and transferred over. Moved out to St. Louis.
Yeah, I looked at it earlier tonight, and I think it was 2007, 2008, 2009. So that would have been 2006. So so 2006.
I moved out there in August of 2006. Yeah. Graduated in 2009.
Yep. And then at that point, that kind of sets you up for a run of some international medals that you have a perfect record. Essentially, when it comes to championship games in the international competition, gold medal games, I should say.
Sure.
Tell us a little bit about that because your first tournament was, if I'm not mistaken, was in Taiwan. If I'm not mistaken, right?
No, my first international tournament was in Dusseldorf, Germany, in 2008.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So then the next year we went to Varese in Italy for the Fears World Championships, and then a week later we went to Taiwan for the World Games. Okay. Yeah. So that was summer of 2009. Yeah, but the first one was in Germany, and that was a pretty cool experience for me because other than Canada, I'd never been out of the United States. This was my first trip to Europe, and it was really, really, really cool just seeing the culture and just being able to go for an event like that because you always hear about it, and I had heard of I had friends that have gone. Obviously Greg Thompson, those guys, Tommy Bruce, Travis Fudge, who were on my Lindenwood team, they'd all played at that point for USA. So it was always it was something when I first moved out there, I never thought was in the cards. Like not that I didn't think I was good enough, but I had never really, I guess, gone after something like that. I didn't really know how to get involved. And so, being at Lindenwood and finding out, here's the tryouts, your name's out there, sign up. And I went with Fudge. We actually drove out because that was when they still did the tryouts in Colorado Springs, and you stayed at the Olympic Training Center. So we all drove out. We kind of caravanned it. I think Ryan Bond was with us too.
Mm-hmm.
And he was a guy, he played ice at Lindenwood, but he was an old roller kid too. So we all went out there in 2008 for the tryouts and then made the team, and the rest was kind of history. It was great.
Yeah. Dusseldorf is one of those, it's one of those cities in Germany that not many people know too much about where it's located. I actually have a buddy of mine who lives just outside of Dusseldorf. And he tells me he freaking loves it. So,
it was great.
Yeah.
And
So
we stayed at a really nice hotel, and it was probably, I couldn't tell you the distance anymore. It was a long time ago, but we walked basically through the heart of the city to the rink. So it was a pretty short walk, but you get to kind of go see, the main hub of the city of Dusseldorf on the way. It was pretty cool.
Yeah. And and the list I was looking at probably had something, the order in the wrong order as well. I was just looking at it backwards too. I was trying to hold my baby girl as I was looking through everything. So getting a chance to experience some international play, what was the teams that you were that you found interesting to play against, that you were like, hey, they're using something that I'd never really even thought of, or hey, this system is completely different. I might try to incorporate some of those into my style of play.
Well, that's a pretty good question. I know not so much when I went, but I had heard. I remember being on the bus from the hotel, or from the airport to the hotel in Germany. I was talking with Mike Cioli because he was on my first team. My first team had, CJ Yoder, Brian Yingling, Mike Cioli, a lot of the older guys, Weichelbaumer, those guys that had played for years. It was kind of like on their tail end before they went kind of over to IIHF when that was still around. So I was talking with Cioli and just getting some stuff, and he was telling me about years ago when Scott Acongio used to coach their team, and like Team Italy, I guess, was the big one that used to just play a box. And he goes, "You are not going to be able to break it. This is how they're going to play." Mm-hmm. And he was like, "Dude, it really for sure was exactly like that. Like they knew how to play a box that you could not penetrate, and so they were always these low-scoring games. But they obviously found a way to win. But yeah, it was different. I would say my biggest surprise though was honestly Team France, because when you go to a tournament like this, you think of Czech, Swiss, Canada, and they're all, don't get me wrong, they're all solid teams. But my first year, we actually played France in the final. Played them in the first game and beat them. I got my first international goal, which was really cool. Then we played, I want to say maybe like Korea or something. It was one of those games that was just a blowout. And then we actually played Czech in our third game of round robin and got absolutely shit kicked. It was like 7-rip or something like that. We just played horrible. They were all over us. And so that kind of opens your eyes. You go, you really got to be ready for every single game. So we got through, I want to say we played Switzerland in the semi, got through like a 2-1 game. And it was one of those games where we just sat back in our zone with the puck and would move it around because they wouldn't chase us. Right. Mm-hmm. And once we got the 2-1 lead, we're like, this is what we got to do. Yeah. And we ended up playing France in the final because France beat Czech twice in that tournament. They beat them in the round robin, and then they beat them in the semi. And it was just a surprise for me, just not knowing how big roller hockey is in France and the teams that they had. And I was just expecting to play Canada, Czech, Swiss, those guys. I thought that was going to be our route to the final, and it ended up being France, but we were able to beat them and bring it home.
Yeah, and that was one of those things where most people don't realize that Italy, I believe Italy is one of the teams that initiated the box style of play in the international competition, because they were so good at shutting everybody down with it that everybody started to incorporate it. Now that's what you're kind of seeing all the time.
Right.
I know when I talked to Etan, he and Corey Hodge, they both said this past year at the World Skate Games when they played Argentina, it was the only game that they had won by, I think it was like 9-1 or 9-2 or something like that. Everything else was a little bit closer. But Argentina was a very young team, but they were the only team to run and gun with them. And both of those players said that they had mad respect for that, because it's easy to just box up and try to shut down, but it's another thing to try to play their style of game, because they want to be that run and gun style of team, just like Team USA. And
Right. I think
couple
especially when you're
years,
outmatched, especially when you're outmatched, right? You're going up against a powerhouse. Because I've been on the other side of it too. I've been on the losing side. When I was younger, you're playing against a team that is just going to wipe the floor with you. But it's not fun. It's not fun to sit back and play in that box. I get why teams do it, right? Especially in these big tournaments and everything like that. But being on both sides of it, it's not really fun on either side. You want to play the fast game. Not that that's really in my repertoire anymore, but you want to play the faster paced game. The roller hockey is supposed to be a fast skill game. It's not really supposed to be so much of a possession game anymore. I feel like when I was younger, it was. That was when you had Narch Pro used to be a real slow possession game, and it's not anymore. It's so fast now.
Yeah, it's more of it's very entertaining, and it's one of the things that I enjoy as a fan more than anything. It's one thing to play and then not be around the sport for as long as I have been. Once I got injured in 2015, I had to walk away and not watch any hockey, even ice hockey. Right. I just kind of put blinders on, totally forgot about it, because otherwise I was like, I can get back out. I want to get back out there and do it again. And it wasn't until my son was about 18 months to 2, where I was like, you know what? I saw a post with GCH, and I'm like, they were looking for somebody to broadcast, and I was like, I can do that. That'd be cool. I got some, experience, and we could talk about the way that the game is being played, because I can see how the play develops and stuff like that. And if you ever watched one of the old broadcasts from a couple years ago, where I'm calling the game, you can definitely see okay, hey, this is what's going to happen next. Before it happens, it's crazy because 90% of the time I was right, but there was a time where I'm like, oh, well, that kid didn't see the play developing the way that I saw it.
Right.
But it's one of those ones where it's just hey, you got to take a time, get back into it, and then you move forward. But now I'm starting to see where it's puck possession on one end, and then the shot happens, the other puck possession has it, and then they're right back to going the other way. And it's just so fast. And again, the turnovers is it's there, but it's few and far between. I mean, it really is just, they've maintained the puck possession so well. They're making 3 or 4 passes before they get the shot. But they're all cycling and they're all moving as fast as they can. It's insane.
Yeah, well, like you said, even to the point, even if you do turn the puck over, I mean, one of your guys is already there because they're all just moving so much that somebody's always there. The decisions are so much quicker now than they have to be, or than they used to have to be.
Yeah.
Like I said, back in the days, I'm men's platinum now. I had my stint in Narch Pro and stuff like that. And back when I played it, it was a very, very slow, just possession game. Games are won 2-1, 3-1.
Yep.
Guys are, swinging around, holding the puck behind their net for quite a bit of time. And now the kids just fly. It's unreal.
Yeah, it was very methodical. Now it's just it's a methodical fast, which is crazy.
100%. The strategy's still there. The chess game is absolutely still there. They can just do it so much faster now, and it's insane to watch, honestly.
Yeah, and you're starting to see a lot of it trickle down into the college game as well. I don't know if you had a chance to watch that Lindenwood and Grand Canyon University game last year, the GC.
The final from a few years ago that went to double overtime?
Triple overtime.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I watched the highlights of it. I didn't see it live, but I did watch the cut. Somebody made a YouTube video that had some of the highlights of it, and same thing. You think you're almost watching Narch Pro there. Those kids are insane.
Yeah, and the crazy thing is that highlight, I watched that same highlight video. That highlight video doesn't do the game justice because I was literally just sitting on the edge of my seat in my house on this computer. And my wife is like, "What are you doing?" And I go, "I'm watching probably one of the greatest roller hockey games that I will ever see. That outside of a professional game." And it really was a phenomenal game. I mean, you had everything you wanted in a roller hockey game. If you weren't a fan of roller hockey, this is the game you want them to watch because it went to, like I said, triple overtime. You're sitting on the edge of your seat, and it was not slow at all. And I've had a chance to interview a couple guys from GCU. I had a chance to interview a couple guys from the Lindenwood team, and both of them were just like, one was like it sucked that we lost, but the other one was like it was so much fun that we won because of the way that the game was played. It wasn't like your typical overtime style of play that you saw in years
people
before.
Tend to get tentative in overtime, right? Nobody wants to make the mistake or anything like that, but that's where it gets tough because you can't be afraid to make a mistake. Otherwise, you're going to make a mistake. You know what I mean? You just got to go out there and play.
It was balls to the wall, 120 miles per hour on both ends, and both goalies played phenomenal.
Unreal, yeah.
So then you got a chance to you played your international tournaments, and then what happened after that? Because you kind of took a little bit of a break too, outside of
I tapered off for a while.
Yeah, and then,
so I did that. I played 2008, 2009. 2009 was both Fears and the World Games. Mm-hmm. I had actually 2 years off for, as funny as it sounds, for failed drug tests. But what really happened was back then you had to register with United States Anti-Doping Agency, USADA, which is what the Olympians have to register for. So what actually happened was I was working overnight at the casinos while I was going to college. I was in that industry for about 13 years. So long story short, I missed 3 different drug tests where they came to drug test me at my house. I never failed one. I wouldn't ever fail one, but they missed so much to the point where I actually bought off Amazon, because this was 2010. I bought like a wireless doorbell that I had to put on the front door of my apartment that would ring in my bedroom, because at the time, the apartment I was in, you could kick my front door down, and if my dog didn't start barking, I wasn't going to hear it and wake up at 5:30 in the morning when I just got home from work. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I missed a few. So I actually ended up getting a 2-year suspension which is basically the same as if you fail. Mm-hmm. And yeah, it was great because Keith Knoll at the time was he was like the head of AAU, which was the governing body for Fears. He actually went to bat for me. Him and a lot of guys are like, I can tell you right now, this kid's not on drugs and stuff, So we went through an appeals process. I showed them the proactive steps I was taking, like, hey, I got this doorbell. Like, I'm sorry, it is what it is. Here's why. I was working overnight. It's unfortunate that it happened that way, but we got it down to a year. So could have gone, I forget where it was in 2011, but the problem was, since I didn't go in 2010, I didn't play tours in when it was in Feasterville. That used to be the tournament you had to play in to qualify for the camp to try out. So because my first year we flew to Feasterville, played that event, and then flew to Germany from there. So since I didn't go to Worlds, I didn't go to tours, so I didn't qualify for 2011. And then they changed it a little bit, the qualifying process and all that. So if you were playing AIHL, you qualified. So my best friend, who was living with me at St. Louis at the time, we played for the Pittsburgh Bandits. So we would travel out there and play with Dustin Rue and those guys. Yep. So that's how I got qualified for the 2012 one. And that's also when they had done away with like an actual tryout camp. So it was more based on resumes and things like that. And so I got put on that team. But so that one was in Colombia. So that was the last like main Team USA that I had played in international competition. And then, I came home after that, moved home in 2012, back to California, and I got married. That was in 2015, but got married. No, 14. Sorry. Don't show my wife that part. Son was born in 15, got married in 14. So kind of just, had a young family. I had a kid, and it was just, I was working, and, we had just bought a home and things like that. So I really just wasn't in the scene for a while. Finally was able to get back involved with PAMA, the men's platinum team, back when Huntington Beach was still around, and got back into that, played with them for a pretty good stint, and got back, more into it. But I've got 3 kids now, so it was hard for me to kind of commit to traveling to a lot of tournaments and things like that. So like I said, there was a bit of a break, but then I got back involved with them, and I've kind of been fairly steady ever since.
Yeah, and during that break, you actually participated in a tournament, but it was not roller hockey, if I'm not mistaken, and you did fairly well.
What are we talking about?
Isn't that didn't you participate in the World Series?
You're talking about the World Series of Poker?
Yeah. I
did, yeah. So I was in that industry for 13 years. Like I said, I started working in the casinos overnight while I was going to school and stuff like that. On honestly, because I was a little bit irresponsible before I moved to Lindenwood financially. So when I moved to college and was playing hockey, I still had to work because I had bills that were my fault 100%. I had bills that I had to pay, but just, being a young kid that was dumb with money, that's kind of what you did. And so I was in the casino industry, was dealing poker in St. Louis at a Harrah's property. They had one of the World Series of Poker circuit events came into town, and they just, because that was at the time a Harrah's owned entity. They owned the World Series of Poker. So we all dealt the circuit event, and they just posted a list of interest saying who wants to come deal the World Series of Poker. So I was like, that'd be kind of fun. Like, I've always watched it on TV. So dealt it for a few years. 2010 and 2012, I was there over summer dealing it. And I had an uncle that lived in Vegas at the time. And he's always like no wife, no kids or anything. So he always kind of treated us as his kids. It's my dad's brother. And the three of us have always been really close. And he was like, oh, you should have told me you were coming out, because the very first event every year at the World Series of Poker is the casino employees event. So any capacity of a casino employee, whether it's bartenders, dealers, floor people, poker news people, you're allowed to play. So it's not an open event to anybody. But yeah, the first 2 years when I was there working, I didn't play or anything. I just kind of hung out with him, and then moved back home. 2015, he called me and said he actually got a hold of me a couple of weeks before. So why don't you come out and play it? I'll put you into it, And I was like, sure, why not? So went out there and hung with him, and 2 days later, I had won the freaking thing, and it was my first ever World Series of Poker tournament. We ended up bringing it home. It was kind of crazy. I mean, it's surreal if you think about it. The fact that it was 10 years ago makes me feel a little bit old, but it was unbelievable.
Yeah, that had to have been pretty cool and pretty special, because you were down a little bit, and then you fought your way back and you took championship, So we're not going to tell you how much he won. That's not,
it's out there. It's not a big deal. But
I know, but still, but it's. I think it's amazing. I think it's pretty cool. It's not something that most people would get a chance to do. You were able to bring it home, and So, but now back to the hockey. So you come back, and then you start doing. You took a little bit of time off, but then you came back, and then you started really playing more so in the men's platinum. Tell us a little bit about that, because that is a style is probably a little bit different than the Narch Pro that we're seeing on and how that correlates to what am I trying to ask you here? Just tell us a little bit that style play.
Yeah, I would say, back in the days when we're talking like when Winter Nationals in Arizona, when I used to play for the Mission Lucky Charms team in men's platinum, back then there was a big disparity, because that's, like I said, back when pro was that slow control pace game, and the men's platinum game was actually the run and gun type of game, right? And I always liked the run and gun type of game. I just don't have the level that the pro guys now have it, right? Because it's faster than men's platinum was back then. So pro back then was slower. Men's platinum was more of the run and gun, and I did really well in that. I would say overall as a whole, I don't mean anybody specifically, you can find a little bit more weaknesses in men's platinum. So, you can find those open areas that you wouldn't have in pro, which has always been my kind of a game. I had stints when I was younger, 16, 17, where I go one-on-one and burn guys. That's just not my full style of game. I like to find, the weaknesses, find the open areas, and just kind of find my way into there, as opposed to trying to like burn a guy one-on-one. That just doesn't happen. Like maybe more of an ice hockey mentality, the guy moving faster gets the puck and then you find open space to help him out, kind of thing.
Yep.
So that's why it worked for me back then. In the pro game, like I said, especially nowadays, those open spots just aren't there. You know what I mean? So that was the main difference for me. You could find them a little bit more in men's platinum, where you can't so much in pro.
Yeah. Yeah, it's one of those ones where the pro game, because it's so drastically different nowadays, is that you have to be where the other person used to be before they get back to where they want to be, type of mentality, or at least that thought process. And once you see it, and once you start to watch some of the games, you'll kind of see what we're talking about. with that. And then, but within the men's platinum, you have the open avenues are right there. You just have to make sure that you pick the spot at the right time, because otherwise you're just going to be skating right alongside the other person.
Sure.
So then, so now you're playing with, if I'm not mistaken, you're with Labeda Freez, right?
Yep. I'm actually wearing the shirt. Those are my boys right there.
Nice. Yeah. I thought I saw that, but yeah. So Vinny called you up and said, "Hey, man, I want you to come play with us." How'd that conversation go?
So originally, Vinny and I, we've played together for years. We actually played together on the PAMA men's platinum team, right? And then he moved out to Texas with his business that he's very successful at. I'm actually proud of the guy. He works his ass off, so he deserves everything he's getting. He moved out there, and that kind of ended his time because a lot of the PAMA guys were centralized here. I mean, you've got some people in other spots, but the core of the team was kind of centralized in Southern California. And he was really working on getting that started. And I mean, he'll even probably tell you, I know you've interviewed him a few times. He probably kind of thought his roller hockey career was over. Mm-hmm. When he went out there, he was mainly focused on that. And then he found this group of guys that are just unreal. Great group of guys, stellar hockey players. I mean, you've seen their pro team now is just unbelievable. These guys are crazy. They're just crazy good. And he actually built a team. They were farm tough at first. So I had stopped playing for PAMA. Just like I said, it was one of those things where as my kids were at that age where I wasn't able to travel to like the 3 tournaments a year. And so I was kind of fizzling off, and, Rob and I had a few conversations, and that it just wasn't, I get why I kind of stopped getting the call, right? It started over a miscommunication over one tournament that we've already hashed that out later, but they kind of needed somebody that was going to be able to go to every tournament. Right. And I understand that. So I had kind of fizzled off and wasn't really doing much. And then Vince brought out a farm tough team I don't remember if it was Winter Nationals or Finals. I think it was Finals in Irvine. And he just put up like the team list on his social media pages. And I jokingly asked him, I said, "Hey, you got a number 77 in there for me?" Because that was the number I wore at the time. Right. Mm-hmm. He's like, yeah, I just kind of joke. He goes, "I'll let you know." Right. And then he goes, "No, you know what? Fuck it. Just show up. You're in." And then he just threw me in the group chat. And because him and I were line mates on PAMA. Right. So it was we were always pretty close. And he threw me in, and we lost to PAMA in the final in overtime. They tied it in the last minute. So, I mean, we had a squad. We knew we were building towards something pretty good, right? It was the first one. We threw it together, and then, we just unfortunate ending, but it kind of started this process of now what Labeda Freez is turning into. So it was a really cool event to get started and meet all those guys.
Yeah, and now they're sponsoring the women's pro showdown, which I'm excited to witness later this year. It's going to be in Detroit at Taylor. I'm excited. It's going to be just right down the road from me. I mean, a couple hours.
Taylor's a great facility.
What's a couple hours?
That was a great facility. I loved going to tours there back in the day.
Yeah, and it's only gotten a little bit better from my understanding. They did some upgrades not too long ago. So
nice.
Yeah, so I'm excited. I already talked to the wife. I said, "Hey, can we go to this? It'll be right at the time where my work vacation renews, so I'll be able to take a little bit of time off and we'll go check it out." So hopefully, my son doesn't have to visit with his mom that weekend, so that way we can go and not have to worry about being back at a certain time on Sunday.
That'd be great.
Yeah, so. But I'm excited. I know you and the Labeda Freez guys are super excited. You guys got some tournaments coming up here. You just played one last weekend, right?
I played in the Narch Regional in Corona. I think it was 2 weeks ago or It was 2 weeks ago. Yeah. With the Reapers, the H3 Reapers. Yeah, buddy of mine, Nathan Robert, runs that team. Just a guy I've played beer league with in Corona, and he just asked me to play, and we put a nice little squad together.
Cool. And so then but like I said, Labeda's got a couple of tournaments coming up. I think they're not doing Midwest Wars, I think, but they are doing tours, if I'm not mistaken. I think I saw that on the list.
Possibly. I don't know what our summer schedule looks like as of yet. We haven't really talked about that. The next thing up on tap for a lot of guys is the Masters, USA Masters in Germany. So
that's right. Yeah, because I think Vinny's going back over. I see that the roster's out, but I haven't seen it yet.
I don't know that the Masters roster has been published. The World Skate Games roster was just published.
Yeah, no, I know that one was dropped. I know they added a couple, they dropped a couple.
Right.
But I'm going to talk to Tim about that on Tuesday. And which I hope is not a joke. But no, I know I talked to Mike Francis about the veteran squad because he had aged out of the Masters.
Right.
And so last year was the first time that he was the youngest kid on that veteran squad. And he's like, yeah, no, I'm for sure going. The roster list is out. And I'm like, I am scouring it and I can't find it. So I assume that the team list is out as far as who's going. It just hasn't been publicly announced yet. Once I find out, I'm gonna make sure that I blast that so that everybody knows who's going where. So it's gonna be kind of cool. But it's also gonna be held at, like you said, Dusseldorf, Germany, at the Olympic hockey facility that they had during the I can't remember what year that Olympics was.
No, it's not in Dusseldorf. It's up in it's a little town called Garmisch-Partenkirchen or something like that. You fly it's in the Alps. So you fly into Munich and it's up in the Alps. Yeah, not Dusseldorf.
I thought it was just outside of Dusseldorf, though.
Yeah.
But if it's by Munich,
it's outside of Munich. I don't know where Dusseldorf. I don't remember where Dusseldorf is in relation to Munich, but I know that's the airport that you fly into is Munich, and then you take a train.
Dang. All right. Well, I guess I got to refresh my German geography. So.
Well, like I said, I could be wrong. I don't remember where Dusseldorf is. I just know for the planning purposes that you're supposed to fly into Munich and take a train. Yeah,
Munich is in the Bavarian region, which is in southern, which is right by Austria and Hungary.
Austria.
And then you have Cologne is on the western side, and Dusseldorf is just north of that, I think. So I could be like I said, I could be wrong, but you're correct because the town that it's in was an old skiing town in the Olympics. Yeah, so it still has the big ski jump and everything like that. So but I think Benny even told me that it's only like you could take the whole you could tour the whole country in just a few hours. So maybe it's not as big as I thought it was, but so who knows? Could be just a couple hour drive. So all right. Should be interesting. Well, that's gonna. Well, on that note, I've already kept you as late as I can.
That's fine. I'm by myself here, so
it's pushing midnight here. So my wife will give me a stern talking to. You coming to bed at midnight, and I'm like, yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But Brandon, I cannot thank you enough for taking the time to jump on the pod and talk to us a little bit about your story. We'll definitely have you back on to talk a little bit about how your tour series goes. If you guys get to go to that, Narch for sure. Maybe even catch up with you at State Wars. I think that'd be kind of fun.
That would be great. I appreciate the invite.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes, and hopefully, you had a lot of fun, and you'll come back and shoot shop with me again.
Anytime. Yeah, I appreciate it. I know we talked about it a while ago. I'm glad we were able to finally get it set up. Yeah, well, I'll tell you, trying to get Tim McManus on has been over a year.
Busy guy.
Great guy, busy. Did play for him also. Played for the Snipers for a while back when I was younger, so great guy.
And we had set up a time this past Tuesday. Well, then he had something come up, so we had to reschedule for this coming Tuesday. So fingers crossed, because I really want to talk to him and pick his brain on some things. So
if he cancels again, you need to get a better agent.
I'm the agent. That's the problem. But again, I'm Ben W. Stock. That's Brandon Barnette. We will catch you guys on the flip side.
Perfect. Thanks a lot, Ben.
That's going to do it for this episode of GCH Podcast. I'm your host, Ben W. Stock, alongside Chris Greco. Thanks for tuning in. Please make sure you like and subscribe on all our platforms on YouTube and on Spotify. We'll see you guys on the next episode. Cheers.